Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
And it's all real, it all happened, and it's all now to play for on both sides of the House of Commons, of course. There are battles underway, turmoil perhaps around the corner. The Labour Party desperately trying to hold itself together despite having almost a complete clear out of the shadow cabinet due to resignations and the sacking of Hilary Benn. The Conservative leadership battle will be bloody, and it hasn't really begun yet. But we'll begin by talking about the events on Thursday, the result on Friday, and I almost, for the very first time since we started talking to each other every morning, I almost don't know where to start. So confusing and so potentially difficult is this territory. So let's start by making the obvious observation, which I've made several times in the course of the campaign, which is there were a billion reasons to vote to leave the European Union that had nothing to do with xenophobia or racism. A billion, a gazillion, countless, millions, loads and loads and loads of them, okay? It is also true to say that over the course of the weekend we have seen some things that are deeply troubling, okay? But we have not seen compelling evidence that this affects some sort of sea change in British society. The footage I've most recently been shown is of a protest outside a mosque in Birmingham. Quite what that has to do with the European Union will confuse all those people who cast their vote to leave without a racist or a xenophobic bone in their body. But it will not confuse those of us who worried that a vote to leave might embolden the ugliest underbelly of Britain. And there is evidence that it has. What we don't know is how big that underbelly is. A mile from my front door, there was a racist graffiti attack upon a Polish cultural centre that was actually founded partly in recognition of the contribution made to the Second World War by Polish Spitfire pilots. You want evidence of just how mad things have become? Chew on that for a while.
But a worrying insight first, with news that reports of race hate crimes have risen since the referendum. There are mounting allegations of racist and xenophobic graffiti and verbal abuse. So for some people who've lived here all their lives, Britain now feels rather unwelcome, even unsafe. And I should warn you, there is racially offensive language in this report by Porrick O'Brien.
East London on Friday morning. A minicab driver swears at a man in a VW Golf trying to pass. Then that person starts racially abusing the taxi driver.
Speak proper English then.
The question, is this sort of thing more likely to happen after the referendum result? At West London's Polish Cultural Centre, they're answering that question with a resounding yes. On Saturday, and for the first time in nearly 50 years, the building was daubed with a racist slogan.
Thank you. Thank you.
There are many of us who are really glad the Poles are here.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's...
We're honoured that you're here.
Thank you so
While we were there, a man arrived with more flowers and an emotional show of support.
Thank you very
Excuse me,
much.
sir.
Thank
Can you just tell us why you've come?
Well, I've come to support the Poles because I think they've had a really bad time of it, because the Poles are great people and I've always admired them, and they integrate well. They're just fantastic people.
As well as the incident at the centre, police are also investigating the fact that these laminated cards were found near a school in Huntingdon, Cambridgeshire. Multiple examples are being posted online, and it's not just anecdotal. 85 race hate incidents were reported to the National Police Hate Crime website between Thursday and Sunday, up from 54 on the same days last month. There's also been reported racial abuse directed at people who voted to leave, of course. The Prime Minister addressed the overall issue today.
We will not stand for hate crime or these kinds of attacks. They must be stamped out.
That's the big picture. Racism, though, an intimate, personal affair. On Sunday, a man slowed down, then accelerated as Nisha Party was at a zebra crossing.
Kind of step back and just kind of raise my arms to go, "What are you doing? Did you not see me?" And then he just shouted the P word out of his window, And it was clear to me that that was probably the reason why he didn't want to stop for me. You know, I was definitely called those kind of names when we were growing up, but I haven't been called that for a good 30 years. So it doesn't feel to me like it's a coincidence.
The referendum, it would seem, has given a minority an excuse to voice latent hatred. But also, at the Polish centre, a chance for others, in turn, to voice something else.
You want evidence of something even madder? This petition, which is more of a sort of howl of protest, I think, than a reasonable political proposal. Do you know who it was set up by? This petition that's got more than 3 million people calling for a second referendum. Just when you think things can't get any madder, you find out that petition was actually set up a month ago by a Leave campaigner who thought he was going to lose. So the petition that over 3 million people have piled in on calling for a second referendum was set up by someone from the other side who thought he was going to lose. It gives you an indication, I think, of just how insane things are feeling at the moment. There was only one prominent campaigner on the Leave side who even floated the possibility of having a rerun of the referendum. Needless to say, when I tell you that that was Nigel Farage, you'll know that he will by now have already said the polar opposite of what he said back then. And it's not just him, of course. This is Boris Johnson on May the 23rd. The system has spun out of control. If you vote in on the 23rd of June, you are kissing goodbye permanently to control of immigration. This is Boris Johnson on June the 26th. It is said that those who voted Leave were mainly driven by anxieties about immigration. I do not believe that is so. Same man, same year, same subject. Completely different contributions. So no wonder we are a little bit confused and a little bit worried. I don't think either of us have got the right to tell each other what we can feel at the moment. I don't think you've got the right to tell me to feel more upbeat or more positive. I certainly don't think I've got the right to tell you to feel more downbeat or more frightened. I think we can respect each other's right to move on when we feel like it, can't we? We can respect each other's right to express a view in a liberal democracy, for now, that may be at odds with somebody else's. I don't think we can expect each other to agree on every single subject, but I don't think that we can really close our eyes and stick our fingers in our ears and pretend that everything is going to be okay. Best case scenario right now, we have a period of pretty serious turmoil and economic difficulty, at the end of which we might, if we're lucky, be just about as well off as we were before. But we'll have these other things that I completely understand people really care about, like sovereignty and control. I don't know. I guess it's a question really ultimately of whether or not they, on one side of the scales, outweigh all the stuff that may happen on the other side. But we don't know. We don't know. And if I could flick a switch, and a few of you were kind enough to get in touch over the weekend saying, I hope you can make me feel better on Monday morning. I can't. If I could flick a switch and somehow mainline optimism, somehow mainline positivity, get some sort of, I don't know, medical intervention that allowed us just to be more glass half full than glass half empty, then I would bite your arm off. I absolutely would. There is a billion questions, absolute billion questions we could ask now that would be worthy of answers. But I think it's still time. It's still time to just take stock of the situation. I really don't like this narrative out there at the moment telling everyone to shut up and move on. If you stick a Winnie the Pooh picture on my Facebook page, you are dead to me. Piglet says we can still be friends. People are frightened and furious. Having a pop at someone on Facebook that you're cross with is not the same as spitting at someone in the street because they're brown or putting excrement through their letterbox because they're Polish. You being upset because some friends of yours have been cross to you on Facebook, that's not what it feels like when you turn up at school and you're Romanian and someone's written on the toilet wall, go home to Romania. It feels very, very different when someone's standing yards away from you in the street as you go to prayers at your mosque and they're screaming that you're a Pakistani paedophile who must go home tomorrow. It doesn't matter that you reply, I was born at a hospital a mile and a half away. They are there. And I pray, like everybody else with a conscience in this country prays, that they are small and they will go away again. But I can't sit here in front of you today and say that I'm confident they will. I'm not going to. How dare anybody suggest that we should be quiet about our concerns or our fears? The whole point of this whole debate was that people's concerns and fears hadn't been properly articulated or addressed. And now we're turning around within, 72 hours of the result and telling everybody who is feeling a little bit bruised that their concerns and fears should be forgotten and overcome. Just think for a minute how mad that is. You've got concerns, you've got fears, I want to hear them. I really do. We also need to talk about the Labour Party, and we also need to talk about the hate that may or may not be just exerting something a little bit more like a stranglehold on parts of the country than it was before. But let's just begin with the rearview mirror. You hear what I said about optimism a minute ago? I think that you would be my holy grail caller today, actually. You voted to remain. You were disappointed by the result, but you've had the weekend to take stock. You've had a couple of days to have a look at the situation. I don't think it's controversial of me to suggest you'll have to either manage to interpret in a very novel way or avoid it altogether most of the economic forecasts, most of the predictions of jobs moving out of the city pretty soon, most of the responses from other financial leaders, other big business people. You don't have to take what they say as gospel, but I don't think you can pretend they haven't said it. So, if you fall into that category, call me now, sell me some of that optimism, give me some of that positivity. And if you've done it the other way around, 0345 6060973 is the number you need, just to tell me why you've paused now, what it is that you've suddenly woken up to that perhaps you hadn't taken into account properly before you cast your vote. I'm not going to stress this point because the kind of people who are determined not to hear it never will. But there were a billion reasons. The second most viral clip I did last week was the one in which I explained at some length why there were a billion reasons to vote to leave the European Union that had nothing to do with loathing thy neighbour or racism or xenophobia. But you cannot escape the fact that people who do subscribe to those rather rancid schools of thought are walking around with a spring in their step at the moment. We can all agree on that, right?